Well, there's a lot of interest in the latest federal by-election taking place today in the Vancouver Island riding of Nanaimo Ladysmith. The seat has been vacant for several months since former NDP MP Sheila Malcolmson resigned to run successfully for the provincial NDP. She won the seat in 2015 federally by 10 points, but many people are predicting a tighter race this time around with 7 candidates in a crowded field. And a lot of the buzz is once again around the performance or the possible performance of the Green Party. Spencer Sterritt is a reporter for Nanaimo News Now, and we've reached him in Nanaimo. Mr. Sterritt, thanks for taking time to speak with me tonight. Appreciate it.
Of course.
This is the last by-election before the general election in October, so parties, in some ways can kind of test drive campaign messages and policies. What kind of a campaign has it been so far?
So far, it's been a pretty on-the-ground, really sort of a green campaign. A lot of door knocking, a lot of really talking about the local issues, and this does seem to be viewed as a test run for a lot of the big federal parties, especially because there's no real incumbent in this race. Paul Manley running for the Greens, previously ran before. It came fourth back in 2015, but everyone else is new to a ballot, and so this is generally seen as a way to sort of put some feelers out, maybe see what they need to do next time and really find out what messages are actually tracking with the public and what they should be building their platforms on.
What's the interest been? Sometimes voter, advance polls and it can tell us a little bit about the level of excitement or the level of engagement. What are we seeing there? Are people taking a big interest in this, or are they thinking to themselves, look, there's a general election coming in a few months anyway, so I'm not sure how important this one is?
I think it's a split of both. People are pretty interested, but they are also very cognizant of the fact that we will be doing this again in a few months. A lot of narratives of how whoever wins will only spend approximately 5 weeks as an MP before the spring break, and then election season again has really taken hold. But it is definitely the talk of the town, as every election is. So there's the good and the bad that comes with that. But Nanaimo is a fairly politically focused riding. In the 2015 federal election, it was roughly 75% of eligible voters turned out. So politics is definitely always a talking point in this riding, and we're not really seeing anything different this time, but the narratives behind that have sort of skewed to one of a little bit more of a fatigue and apathy, especially since we will be doing this again in just a few short months.
Okay, what are the big issues that may decide the vote here?
Really, in this riding, it's all about affordability in terms of housing, in terms of gas, just in terms of the amount of money that people have in their wallets at the end of every day. We are unfortunately one of the more poor ridings throughout the province and through the country as a whole, and it's something that we've really seen take root in pretty much every conversation. A lack of affordable housing, the sky-high gas prices. There is also a fairly widespread crime problem happening in Nanaimo. And so people are getting fed up about the issues they see on the street every day. And, as we have seen, affordability is now a major part of any political party's platform. And so people are really hammering home that message in all of the ways that fit with their party.
What do you think? Who do you think has the best shot at winning, if I can put it that way? What do you be watching tonight in terms of the performance of, I guess, the key parties?
Really, I think this is going to be a two-party race between Bob Chamberlain and the NDP and Paul Manley with the Greens. The Greens have really been surging quite strong in this election. I don't put much stock in polls, but a lot of the polls do have the Greens up by a relatively slim edge. But this is an NDP stronghold, as we saw in the 2015 election and in much of the riding that was in this area before it was amalgamated for the 2015 election. So it is really a battle between the two of those. I think the Conservatives might have a bit of a chance. They came in third last time, and certainly some of the messaging at the federal level involving, the S&C Lavalin affair has certainly trickled down and given them a boost. But I would be surprised if there was more than a few hundred votes between the Green leader, Paul Manley, and the NDP leader, Bob Chamberlain.
And I guess that's when organization becomes really important, right? By-elections often come down to who has all elections, but by-elections as well come down to who has the best organization to get supporters out, which party, can get the advantage in terms of organization. And it would seem to me that, the NDP has a long-standing organization there. The Greens maybe not so much, right?
They do. I mean, the NDP, as a federal party machine, they got people out on the streets not first, but definitely with a significant amount of force once they did elect their candidate. He was one of the last ones chosen. In fact, Bob Chamberlain was decided to be leader after the by-election had been called. But definitely, it's been interesting to see the full weight of a political machine like a federal party get put into play in such small scale here on Nanaimo streets. That's not to dismiss the efforts of the Greens. Paul Manley threw his hat into the ring fairly early on, and they hit the ground running and have really been out there. I would say there's an equal number of Green signs to NDP signs, and then in terms of engagement events, being out there on the side of the road waving. Pretty much everyone has really put their full force into this, regardless of the ramifications and the fact that it's only going to be for essentially a 5-week role as an MP.
But there's a lot of symbolism, I suppose, in what could happen in this last by-election before the federal vote. I know so much so that I think all the federal party leaders have been there, right, campaigning with the candidates.
Absolutely. I was just talking to some political analysts who really showed that, while this can seem like a more minor by-election, just given the timing of it all, it is really sort of become a focal point for how these parties will track in the upcoming federal election. And yes, every major leader has been here, and someone like the Conservatives have been sending in many of their MPs. Same with the Liberals. Paul Martin was here just the other day, and so this has really been a full force campaign on every front.
Maxime Bernier's new party, let's finish on this. The People's Party of Canada had a strong showing in the last BC by-election in Burnaby South, capturing 11% of the vote there with a high-profile candidate. Is the People's Party registering in this campaign? Is Max Bernier's party making a dent? I think if I looked at the numbers correctly and the breakdown of candidates correctly, there are at least sort of 2 or 3 conservative candidates or candidates on the right? So there could be a split in the conservative vote. And what about Max Bernier's party? Any buzz about that party out there?
I think the Bernays party could take away some of the votes for the Conservatives. At the most recent all-candidates election that I was at, where Jennifer Clark was there, she was the most booed candidate, but she did also get a significant, number of claps and supports. Many people out there with signs. Given how that party aligns, sort of on the spectrum of left to right, I don't think it would make a significant difference for John Hurst's campaign. The campaign he is running out here does seem more skewed towards center-right versus far-right. So I don't believe they will be a big factor. I wouldn't anticipate more than 1,000 votes for them.
All right, Spencer.
At the high end, once this all comes down.
All right, Spencer Sterritt, thanks for giving us your perspective here as we watch and wait and find out what happens in the by-election of Nanaimo Ladysmith. Take care. Thanks for talking with me.
You as well.